"Human, it's been over a month, and you haven't deflowered me," she said, her eyes locking onto his with a dangerous glint. Her voice dripped with an unspoken challenge, the air thick with tension. She stepped closer, inching toward him. With each breath, the question hung in the room. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? She teased him, waiting for a response, but he remained silent, a dare or a death sentence. But what he didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Was he about to give in? Or was there something far darker at play? The room suddenly felt colder, the stakes higher, and just when he thought he could hold his ground, she moved again. And it was too late. What happens next will change everything. Welcome to my YouTube channel and to a brand new story. I'm your narrator for today, a voice you might recognize, but whose story you won't forget. Get ready for a journey filled with suspense, mystery, and a whole lot more. Now, let's dive into the world we've created just for you. Let's begin the story. The air inside the spaceship was heavy with anticipation. It was dark, except for the soft, orange glow from the walls and the blinking lights of the high-tech controls. The room, so sleek and futuristic, felt like it belonged in a dream. But it was real, very real. The human man sat on the edge of the bed, his mind lost in thoughts. He had been stranded in this cold, lonely space station for weeks, waiting for something, anything, to happen. His eyes stared out of the small window, looking at the stars, but his thoughts were somewhere else, somewhere, or rather, someone else. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the spaceship's engine. He had become used to it, the isolation, the emptiness, but tonight felt different. It was like something was about to happen. The feeling had been growing stronger with every passing minute. Suddenly, the door to the room slid open with a soft hiss. The human didn't even have time to react. His eyes snapped toward the doorway, and what he saw nearly stopped his heart. She stood there, an alien, a creature like none he had ever seen before. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were sharp, almost too sharp, like they could see right through him. She was tall, almost taller than him, with long, flowing silver hair that moved like it was alive. Her body was like a work of art, shaped perfectly with curves and strength. But what truly caught his attention were her eyes. They were filled with something he couldn't quite understand, something dangerous, but alluring. She didn't say a word. She just stood there, watching him. The man felt a rush of adrenaline. His heart started pounding in his chest, but his body stayed still, almost frozen in place. He knew this was the moment everything had been leading to. And then, as if sensing his hesitation, she took a slow step forward. Each movement she made was calculated, deliberate, designed to draw his attention. She walked closer to him, her eyes never leaving his. Her voice broke the silence, cool and confident. "It's been over a month, human, and you haven't touched me once," she said. Her words almost a whisper, but they felt like they echoed in his mind. She was right. He had been holding back, always cautious, always thinking. He didn't know what to expect, what was safe. But now, with her standing in front of him, everything seemed so different. His mind was racing. He couldn't look away from her, not even if he wanted to. Her lips curled into a slight, teasing smile as she stepped closer, her presence overpowering him. She reached out with one hand, almost touching his face, but she stopped just inches away. "Why are you afraid?" she asked, her voice low and filled with something playful. "Don't you want to know what it feels like to touch me?" The man's body tensed, but he still didn't speak. He couldn't. He was caught in the web she had woven around him. She could sense it, his hesitation, his fear, his curiosity. She could feel the conflict within him, and that was all part of her plan. Without warning, she reached down and grabbed the hem of her shirt, pulling it slowly over her head. As the fabric slid over her body, she revealed more of herself to him. The soft, glowing skin, the perfect curves, the strength in her posture. She wasn't just beautiful, she was powerful. His eyes were glued to her, unable to look away as she casually tossed the shirt aside, leaving him in stunned silence. But she wasn't finished. "Go ahead," she said, her voice laced with both a challenge and an invitation. "Touch me, I know you want to." His mind screamed at him to stop, He shouldn't do this. She was alien, dangerous, but his body betrayed him. His hand twitched, almost instinctively, and for a moment, he thought he might actually touch her. But just as he moved, she stepped back, her smile widening. Not yet, not like this. The man froze. He could feel the heat rising in his chest. What was happening? Why was she doing this? What game was she playing? Her voice was soft but firm as she spoke again. You think you can control this, but you can't. Not yet. Not until you prove you're worthy. He didn't know what she meant, but he was desperate to find out. He stepped forward, his hands reaching for her once more, but she dodged him. With a mischievous glint in her eyes, she leaned in close, her lips just inches from his ear. But before we continue, tell me, human, what were you afraid of? The question hung in the air, heavy and full of meaning. He didn't answer, couldn't answer. Not yet. But he knew this. He was about to step into a world unlike anything he had ever known before. And the question remained, would he give in to the temptation? Would he dare to touch her? The moment was slipping away. But was he brave enough to take the next step? The man stood frozen, his mind racing. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, louder than the hum of the spaceship's engine. The alien woman's presence was overwhelming, and he had no idea how to handle the whirlwind of emotion she had stirred within him. Desire, fear, curiosity, it was all tangled together, and she was the one controlling the threads. She hadn't touched him yet, but she didn't need to. Every move she made, every glance, every word was enough to keep him on edge. He could feel her eyes on him, sharp, unblinking, like she was studying him, measuring his every reaction. Her voice broke through the thick silence again, cool and confident. You still haven't answered me, human, she said. Her words were laced with both a challenge and something deeper, something more dangerous. What are you afraid of? He swallowed hard, trying to form a response, but the words wouldn't come. Was he afraid of her, of what might happen next? Or was he afraid of himself, of his own instincts? He had always prided himself on control, but in this moment, all of that seemed to slip away. She took another step closer, her gaze never wavering from his. The intensity between them was palpable, thick with unspoken tension. He could feel the heat of her body, the magnetic pull drawing him in, and yet, he hesitated. He had never been this close to an alien before. She was nothing like the stories he had read. She was real, she was here, and she was more than he could have ever imagined. Her hand, soft yet firm, reached up and touched his chest, just over his heart. She traced a slow line down his body, stopping just above his waistband. He could feel the warmth of her touch even through his clothes. It sent a jolt through his system. But still, he didn't move. You think you can resist me, she said, her voice low and almost playful now. But I know what you're thinking, human. You want me, you can't hide it. Her fingers moved lower, brushing over his abdomen. His breath hitched, but he couldn't pull away. The touch was gentle, but there was power in it, power he couldn't deny. She was toying with him, drawing him in like a moth to a flame. And yet, there was something else in her eyes, something deeper, more unsettling. He finally spoke, his voice strained. I'm not afraid of you. She laughed softly, almost mockingly. No, then why do you hesitate? Why do you hold back? She stepped even closer, her body now pressed against his. The warmth of her skin sent a shock through him, but he couldn't move. He was trapped in a way he had never been before. Her scent was intoxicating, and he could feel the heat radiating off of her. I'm not holding back, he muttered, but even to his own ears, his words sounded weak. Oh, but you are, she whispered, her lips brushing against his ear. You don't want to admit it, but you're afraid of giving in to what you really want. She paused, allowing the words to sink in before adding, you're afraid of losing control. His pulse quickened, and for a moment, he almost felt like he might lose control. But then, as if sensing his weakness, she pulled away. The sudden distance was jarring, and he was left standing there, confused, his body aching for her touch. She took a step back, looking him up and down with a smirk playing on her lips. What happens next is up to you, human, she said, her voice taking on an almost teasing tone. You can keep playing it safe, pretending you're in control, or you can take what you want. But remember, I'm not going to make it easy for you." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. She was daring him to make a move. But would he? He stood there, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts, his body caught between desire and fear. Every fiber of his being screamed to close the distance between them, to finally touch her, to feel the power she was offering. But part of him held back, unsure of what would happen if he let go. And then, as if reading his thoughts, she spoke. "Again, I can see it in your eyes. You want this. You want me." Her voice was barely a whisper now, as if sharing a secret. "But are you brave enough to claim me?" The man's breath caught in his throat. The question hung there, lingering between them like a challenge. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, but this was different. She was different. He took a step forward, his hand reaching out toward her. But just as he was about to touch her, she stepped back again, out of his reach. "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not yet." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his hands still stretched out, his heart racing in his chest. She didn't say another word as she disappeared into the shadows of the spaceship, leaving him alone with his thoughts. What had just happened, and what was going to happen next? The man stood frozen in place, his mind racing, his body still tingling from her touch. What would he do now? Would he follow her, or would he stay behind, holding onto his control? The decision was his, but would he make the right choice? The silence that followed her departure was deafening. The hum of the spaceship's engine filled the air, but it did little to distract him from the storm raging inside his mind. He stood there, staring at the spot where she had just been, his heart pounding, his body still tingled from her touch, her presence. But his mind was a whirlwind of confusion. He couldn't deny the pull she had over him, but he also couldn't understand why she kept teasing him, pulling him in only to push him away. What was she playing at? He had been so close to breaking his own resolve, to giving in to the temptation. But she had stopped him, leaving him hanging with a question still echoing in his mind. Would he be brave enough to claim her? The room felt colder now, the warmth from her presence gone. The tension she had left behind hung in the air, thick and suffocating. He tried to shake off the lingering feeling of her touch, but it was impossible. It had left its mark on him, a mark that wouldn't fade easily. The question still gnawed at him. What was this? What game was she playing? Was she testing him, or was this just a game for her? The man ran a hand through his hair, trying to collect his thoughts. He had always prided himself on his control, his ability to make rational decisions. But in this moment, with her hovering on the edge of his thoughts, control seemed like a distant memory. He finally turned away from the spot where she had stood, pacing the room. His mind kept circling back to her. There had been something different about her, her confidence, her power, her teasing nature. It wasn't just physical. There was something more, something deeper. Suddenly, the door to the room slid open again, and he froze. There she was, standing in the doorway once more, her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than ever. He had thought she was gone, but now, seeing her again, he realized something. It was like a drug. He couldn't resist the pull. His body wanted her. His mind wanted to understand her. She was an enigma, and he was desperate to solve it. She stepped inside, her movements slow and deliberate. This time, there was no teasing smile on her lips. Her expression was serious, almost challenging. "You think you know what you want," she said, her voice low, almost hushed. "But you don't, not yet." The words hit him like a slap to the face. He had thought he understood this game, that he knew where this was going. But now, standing before him, she was making him question everything. "Tell me, human," she continued, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Do you think you can keep resisting me? Or are you going to finally take what's mine?" His breath hitched. The way she said it, with such authority, made it feel like he was the one being tested now. He had always been the one in control, but she was making him feel powerless. But did he care? Did he want to be in control anymore? His hand twitched, again, as if it had a mind of its own. The instinct to reach for her was overwhelming, but he held back, This wasn't just physical anymore. This was about something else, something deeper. He had to know what it was. I don't understand, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Why are you doing this? Her eyes softened for a moment, but only for a second. Because you're human, she replied simply, and that's the most dangerous thing you could be. Her words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, the man didn't know what to say. There was a strange intensity in her gaze, something that was both inviting and terrifying at the same time, that the tension between them was unbearable. And he felt like he was on the edge of something he couldn't control. Her presence was like a fire, burning bright and hot, and he was standing right in the middle of it, unsure whether to step forward or back. Why don't you show me, human? She asked suddenly, her voice dropping to a hushed, dangerous whisper. Show me if you can handle this. Show me if you can really resist me. It was a dare, a challenge. He could feel the temptation in her words, the promise of something deeper, something more, but the man didn't know if he was ready for it. He had been playing this game with her, but now it felt like the stakes were higher than ever. He took a step closer, his heart racing, his mind conflicted. Every inch of him screamed to take what she was offering, but something inside told him to wait. Do you want this? She whispered, her lips so close to his that he could feel her breath on his skin. Tell me, do you want me? The words hung in the air, a question he couldn't answer, and just as he was about to speak, she pulled away, stepping back into the shadows of the room, leaving him standing there, his heart pounding, his body aching. You're not ready yet, she said, her voice trailing off as she disappeared. The man stood there, frozen in place, staring into the empty space where she had just been. He didn't know what to think anymore. Was he ready? Was he really ready to give in? Or would he continue holding back? The question remained, hanging in the air between them. Like a shadow, would he ever be ready? And when the time came, would he choose to take the leap? Or would he walk away? The silence that followed her disappearance was suffocating. He stood there, motionless, his breath coming in shallow gasps. His mind was racing, torn between the desire to give in to her and the fear of what would happen if he did. She had done. It again drawn him in, pushed him away, and left him hanging on the edge of a precipice. Unsure whether to jump or turn back, he glanced around the room, his eyes flicking to the shadows where she had vanished. Her presence still lingered, almost like a phantom, wrapping around him, keeping him in a constant state of suspense. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about physical attraction. There was something else, something darker, more complex. He felt a deep frustration build inside him. Why couldn't he just be in control? Why couldn't he just take what he wanted? She had made it so clear that she wanted him. Yet every time he got close, she pulled away. It was maddening. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to clear his mind. He needed to focus, but no matter how hard he tried, all he could think about was her. The way she moved, the way she spoke, the way she seemed to have the power to twist his thoughts and emotions. With nothing more than a look or a touch, a sudden noise from the doorway broke his thoughts. His heart skipped a beat. Was she back? He turned quickly, his breath catching in his throat. But this time, it wasn't her. It was a different woman, a human woman, just like him. She looked confused, her eyes darting around the room as if she were looking for something. He could tell she was out of breath, as though she had been running. Are you okay? He asked, his voice low and cautious. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to follow her. When she saw no one, she stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a soft click. I don't know what's happening, she said, her voice shaky. I heard voices. I saw her. I thought, maybe I was imagining it. The man frowned, his pulse quickening. Who? What are you talking about? The woman took a step closer, lowering her voice. The alien, the one you were just with. I saw her, and I don't think she's what she seems. He stared at her, confused. What do you mean? She's just a person, like any other. Right. The woman shook her head vigorously. No, she's dangerous. I don't know what she's planning, but I know she's not who she says she is. She's been using you, testing you. His stomach tightened. Was that true? Had she been using him? Everything about their encounters had felt so real, so intense. But now, hearing the woman's words, he couldn't help but wonder if there was something more sinister behind her actions. "I need to get out of here," the woman said urgently, looking over her shoulder again. "She's coming. You don't know what she's capable of." The man didn't know what to think. The woman sounded terrified, but something about her sudden appearance didn't sit right with him. What was she hiding? Why had she come here now, at this exact moment? Before he could say anything, the door behind him opened once more, and this time, it wasn't the woman who had been here before. It was her. She stepped into the room, her eyes locking onto the human woman with an icy gaze. Her presence was as commanding as ever, but there was something different now, something darker. The tension in the room grew thick, almost suffocating. The man could feel the temperature drop, the air getting heavier with every passing second. It was as if everything had changed in the blink of an eye. The alien woman spoke, her voice calm but filled with an undeniable threat. "I told you to stay out of this. You have no idea what you're dealing with." The human woman took a step back, her eyes wide with fear. "What do you want from him?" she asked, her voice trembling. The alien woman's smile was cold, almost predatory. "What I want is none of your concern." She turned toward the man, her eyes locking onto his once more. "You think you can control this situation? You think you're in charge?" Her lips curled into a sly grin. "But you're not. You never were." The man took a step forward, his fists clenching. "What are you talking about? What are you really doing here?" The alien woman's expression hardened. "You're not ready yet, human. You can't handle the truth. But you will." She took a step toward him, her body radiating power and certainty. "You'll learn soon enough. You'll see things for what they really are. And when you do, you won't be able to turn back." The man's heart raced as the words sunk in. What was she talking about? What truth was she hiding? And more importantly, what was he supposed to do now? Before he could ask another question, the alien woman reached out and touched his shoulder, her fingers sending a shock of electricity through his body. He gasped, his muscles seizing for a moment, but he couldn't pull away. "I'm giving you one last chance, human," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You want to know what this is all about? Then follow me. But no, this once you do, there's no turning back." The woman turned, her back now to him, and began walking toward the door. The man stood frozen for a moment, his mind swirling. He wanted answers. He wanted to know the truth. But was he ready to follow her into whatever darkness awaited? He stepped forward, his decision made. But as he reached the door, he heard a voice from behind him. The human woman spoke, her voice full of warning. "Don't go with her. You don't know what you're getting into." The man didn't turn around. He couldn't, and with that, he stepped through the door, following the alien woman into the unknown. What happens next? Will he regret his choice? The air outside the room was colder. The spaceship's hallways, once familiar, now felt like a maze, claustrophobic, winding, endless. The man walked behind her, the alien woman, her presence both an invitation and a warning. Every step he took echoed in the silence, amplifying the growing sense of unease that wrapped around him like a thick fog. He wasn't sure what he expected when he followed her. He had questions, too many of them, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that whatever he was about to discover might change everything. He had felt her power before, that magnetic pull, that sense that she wasn't just playing a game, she was leading him somewhere, and the closer he got to her, the more he could sense the danger in her every move. She didn't look back at him as they walked down the dimly lit hallway. Her stride was confident, almost arrogant, as if she knew that, no matter what happened, she held all the cards. He followed her like a puppet on a string, his every step betraying his confusion. The more he thought about what had happened, the more unsure he became. He had seen how easily she had controlled him, how easily she had used his attraction, his desire, his very humanity against him. "What does she want from me?" he wondered. "What does she mean by all this?" They reached a door at the end of the hallway. The alien woman stopped in front of it and turned to face him. Her eyes were intense, unblinking. For the first time, there was no playful smirk on her lips, no teasing challenge. Her expression was serious, almost cold. "You've made your choice," she said quietly, her voice low, but her words carrying weight. "But understand this, human, there's no going back now." The man looked at her, his heart racing. His mind screamed for him to turn away, to stop, to ask questions, but his body stayed still. He didn't want to stop. He had to know what was happening. He had to understand. She stepped forward, so close that their faces were inches apart. For a moment, everything else disappeared. All he could feel was her heat, her power, the way her eyes seemed to pierce into his very soul. "You think you're in control, but you're not," she said softly, almost affectionately. "I told you before, you think you can resist me, but you're already mine." Her words cut through him, sharp as a blade. The thrill, the tension, it was all building up to this moment. She was right. He had been fooling himself. He had thought he could control this, but now he realized that he was just another piece in her game, and she had been pulling the strings all along. The alien woman reached out and placed her hand gently on his chest, just over his heart. The touch was electric. His skin tingled. His pulse quickened. He could feel the heat rising in his body, a mix of desire and something darker, something more intense. "Do you feel that?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper. "That's the power I have over you. That's what it means to truly be mine." He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. Her words were drowning him, pulling him deeper into her world. But then, just as quickly as it started, the moment broke. She stepped back, her expression now unreadable. "Step inside," she commanded, gesturing toward the door. The man hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. What was on the other side? What was she leading him to? He wanted to ask, to demand answers, but the words died in his throat. There was no time for hesitation now. He had made his choice. He had followed her this far. He stepped inside the room. The atmosphere inside was different, darker. The walls were lined with strange devices, their glowing lights casting an eerie hue over everything. In the center of the room stood a large, circular table, covered with unfamiliar objects. She walked past him, moving toward the table with a sense of purpose. "Sit," she ordered, without looking back. The man obeyed. Sitting on one of the chairs that faced the table, his eyes scanned the room, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The objects on the table were alien in nature, twisted, metallic shapes that seemed to shimmer with an energy he couldn't quite understand. The alien woman turned, her eyes focused on him. There was no more teasing, no more playful flirtation. Her gaze was hard now, calculating. "This is the truth," she said, her voice colder than ever. "The truth that you didn't want to see, the truth about why you're here." The man's breath caught in his throat. His body tensed as she moved closer. "You think I brought you here for pleasure, for some game," she continued. "But you're wrong. This is about power. This is about control. This is about your humanity." He could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. She had played him all along. She had been testing him, pushing him, seeing just how far she could go. And now, here he was, trapped in a room with no escape, no way out. "Do you really want to know what's happening?" she asked, her voice quiet, almost like a whisper. "Do you really want to understand why I brought you here?" He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Yes," she smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was a smile that sent chills down his spine. "You're not ready for the truth," she said softly, "but I'll show you anyway." The room suddenly felt colder, the walls pressing in on him. His heart was racing. The anticipation was unbearable. And then, in an instant, everything changed. The lights flickered, and the strange devices on the table began to hum with power. The alien woman's smile faded, replaced by an expression of cold determination. "You've made your choice, human. Now, you'll see the consequences." The man's heart skipped a beat. What was she about to do? What consequences awaited him now? The man sat frozen, his heart racing as the strange humming of the devices in the room grew louder. The air around him felt thick with tension, as if the very walls were closing in, pushing him into a corner where escape seemed impossible. His eyes darted around the room, trying to make sense of what was happening, but nothing made sense. The alien woman stood before him, her expression unreadable, her eyes dark with intent. "You wanted the truth, human," she said, her voice steady, yet filled with a chilling edge. "Well, you're going to get it." His breath caught in his throat. There was no turning back now. He had followed her this far, but now that he was here, a cold realization settled and he had no idea what he was truly getting into. He had thought he understood the game, but everything was different now. The power dynamics, the attraction, the flirtation, it was all part of something much bigger, something far more dangerous. The alien woman stepped forward, the room seemingly growing colder with each step she took. Her movements were deliberate, controlled, as if every motion was part of a plan. She reached for one of the glowing devices on the table, her fingers brushing the metallic surface, and it began to hum louder, a faint blue light emanating from it. The light flickered, casting eerie shadows across her face, making her look almost otherworldly, even more powerful. "You think this is about seduction," she said, her voice low and commanding. "But it's not. This is about survival, about understanding the power you have within you and the power that I can give you." The man's pulse quickened. Was she talking about power, about him? He had always thought of himself as strong, capable, but now he felt small, insignificant, compared to the force standing before him. The alien woman was not just an object of desire. She was something else entirely. She was a force, an entity, and he was caught in her web, unable to break free. Her eyes locked onto his, and in that moment, the room seemed to pulse with energy. "You're here because you're human," she continued. "You are the last of your kind, fragile, vulnerable, full of contradictions. But you also have something the others don't." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You have the potential to be something more." He didn't know what to say. The words she spoke were both terrifying and enticing. What was she offering him? What was he about to become? "You still don't understand, do you?" she asked, reading the confusion on his face. "You think this is about strength, but it's not. This is about evolution. The evolution of your species and the role I can play in it." His head was spinning. His mind was racing, trying to grasp what she was saying. Evolution. What did she mean by that? Was this just a twisted game to her, or was there something more? "You think you've felt power, human," she said, her eyes flashing with something darker. "But you haven't even scratched the surface. You're about to learn what it really means to feel power." Before he could react, she pressed a button on the device in her hand. The room hummed louder, and the air seemed to vibrate with energy. The man's body tensed as the light from the device grew brighter, swirling around them like a vortex, pulling him deeper into its grip. He tried to move, to escape, but his body wouldn't obey. It was as if the energy in the room had taken control of him. Her gaze never left his as the light enveloped them both, the intensity of the moment nearly overwhelming. "Don't fight it," she said, her voice almost soothing. "This is the moment of transformation. This is where everything changes for you." The man wanted to scream, to push her away, but he couldn't. His mind was racing, but his body was paralyzed by the energy surrounding him. He could feel it, a strange force building inside him, like an electrical current flowing through his veins. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, filling him with a sense of power he had never experienced before. "This is what I was talking about," the alien woman whispered, her voice echoing in his mind. "The true power of humanity lies not in your physical strength, but in your potential to adapt, to evolve, and I'm going to show you how far you can go." The light around them began to intensify, its energy swirling faster, more violently, until it felt like the entire room was vibrating. The man's body shook, his muscles twitching, his heart racing. He could feel something inside him, something primal, something powerful, starting to awaken. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light collapsed inward, leaving the room in complete darkness. The hum of the devices stopped, and the air became still again. The man blinked, his eyes adjusting to the sudden absence of light. His heart was still pounding in his chest, his body still buzzing with energy. But he could feel something had changed. He didn't know how to explain it, but he felt different, stronger, more alive. The alien woman stood before him, her expression unreadable. She didn't say a word as she reached out and placed a hand on his chest, feeling the new energy coursing through him. "You've taken the first step," she said quietly, her voice laced with satisfaction. But this is only the beginning. His mind was racing. What had just happened? What had she done to him? Now, she continued, her eyes gleaming with something darker. "The real test begins. Are you ready to embrace the power inside you? Or will you remain the weak human you were before?" The man stared at her, his breath coming in short, uneven gasps. Was he ready? He didn't know. But one thing was certain, his world had just changed forever. What will he do now? Will he embrace this new power? Or will it consume him? The man stood there, heart racing, his breath shallow. As the alien woman's words echoed in his mind, he could feel it, the power inside him, that strange, electric current that had awakened something deep within. But what was it? What had she done to him? He wanted answers, but part of him was afraid to ask. What if the truth was more than he could handle? What if this power came with a price? The room was silent now, the humming of the devices gone. The only sound was his heartbeat, loud in his ears, as he stared at the alien woman standing before him. She was watching him closely, her eyes dark and unreadable, like she was waiting for him to make a decision. But what decision was there to make? "You've crossed the line, human," she said, her voice calm, but laced with an unmistakable challenge. "You've taken the first step into a world you didn't understand. You've felt the power. Now you must choose." He could feel the weight of her gaze, heavy and knowing. She wasn't just talking about power in the physical sense. No, this was something deeper, something more dangerous. She was asking him to decide whether he would take that power for himself or reject it. The man swallowed, trying to find the words to speak, but they wouldn't come. He was consumed by the overwhelming feeling inside him. The raw, almost primal energy that coursed through his veins was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had always thought of himself as strong, capable, in control, but now it felt like he was just a vessel for something far greater than himself. "Do you understand what you've just done?" she asked, stepping closer to him. Her voice was soft, almost tender, but there was no mistaking the intensity behind it. "You've unlocked something inside you, something that can either break you or make you more than human." Her words sent a chill down his spine. He had no idea what she meant by that, but the way she said it, like she knew something he didn't, made him uneasy. The alien woman raised one hand and touched his face, her fingers cold against his skin. "You wanted to know what this was about," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "Now you do. But you're still standing at the edge of a cliff. You can either jump or you can turn back. But once you make that choice, there's no going back." Her words were like a whisper in his ear, but they rang in his mind with the force of a scream. The man could feel his body trembling, the power inside him growing stronger, almost pushing him forward, urging him to embrace it. But something inside him held back, something that still clung to the old him, the human who didn't understand this new world. The alien woman stepped back, giving him space, but her gaze never wavered. She was watching him closely, like she was waiting for him to make the first move. "You have the power now," she said, her voice softening, "but you're still unsure. That's your weakness, human. You doubt yourself. You doubt your ability to control it." The man's pulse quickened. Was she right? Was he doubting himself? Did he really have the power to control this? Or was he just pretending to be something he wasn't? The alien woman stepped toward him again, her face inches from his. She was so close that he could feel the heat of her body against his. She reached up and touched his chest again, her fingers lingering there. "This is your moment. Will you claim your power, or will you let it slip away?" He could feel it, the power, the surge of energy deep inside him. It was like nothing he had ever felt before. It wasn't just strength, it was something more, something that made him feel invincible. But with that feeling came a darkness, a part of him that was terrified of what would happen if he let go. "You're afraid," she whispered, as if reading his mind, "afraid of what you could become. But you can't control power if you're afraid of it." The man clenched his fists, fighting the urge to back away, to retreat into the comfort of the old him. He wanted to resist. He wanted to walk away. but the power inside him wouldn't let him. It was too strong, too intoxicating. You've been holding back your whole life, she continued, her voice low and steady. But now you have a choice. Take the leap, embrace what you've become, or turn away. But know this: you will never be the same. For the first time, the man made his choice. Without thinking, he reached out, grabbing her wrist, pulling her closer. He could feel the energy inside him, roaring to the surface, and for the first time in his life, he wanted it. He wanted the power. He wanted to be more than human. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she smiled small, almost satisfied. Good, she said, her voice laced with approval. You finally understand. Now you're ready. And in that moment, the man felt it. The power that had been building inside him, the power she had unlocked, rushed through him, filling every inch of his being. It wasn't just physical strength. It was something more. Something that connected him to the universe, to the alien woman, to everything around him. He could feel it vibrating in his blood, in his bones. He was no longer the same. He was something more. But as the energy coursed through him, something else began to stir, something darker, something he hadn't anticipated. The alien woman stepped back, her expression unreadable. Now you've taken the first step, she said, her voice cold. But remember, this power comes at a price. The man looked at her, his breath heavy, his body charged with the new power. He didn't know what the price was. He didn't care. All he knew was that he had changed. He had embraced the power within him. But as he looked into her eyes, a shiver ran down his spine. What was this price? And what would it cost him to keep the power he had just claimed? The journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning.